Ta-da. Cool. Yeah, so minor annoyances in dealing with state. Yeah, obligatory intro. I'm Dustyn. I just talked to you, so if you're hearing me for the first time, welcome. Yeah, so I am an iOS engineer. Been doing iOS since 2016. Just started a new job at GoFundMe. But during this whole year up until then, I was working in a few different places and a few different code bases, and started to see some things that annoyed me. And so when we needed to talk, I thought, what better thing to do than just get in front of everybody and complain a little bit. Have a therapy session. I'll vent here a little bit. Yeah, so that's kind of where this came from. So what we're going to talk about tonight, or what this talk really is like I said, it's a small tour of some things that annoyed me in some code that I've encountered. Not meant to be a full list. It's not meant to be detailed. It's just some things that I've seen recently that I've encountered and were, annoying for you to consider. If you agree, great. If not, come give a talk about the things that annoy you. And yeah, we need more talks. So it's not FDA approved. Cool. A couple of people are still awake. We love that. I just needed 2 bullets because it looked stupid with just one up top. So I'm really not here giving specific recommendations, although we'll go through some examples and I'll probably use language that sounds like I'm being very do this, do that, do that. That's just because I'm lazy and I don't want to have to make sure that everyone does. So yeah, this is really important. Not recommendations. If you don't agree with me, come give a talk and tell me why I'm wrong. So yeah, we will go over a couple examples tonight. We'll discuss why these things annoy me. What about them annoys me? It's the most important thing, really. Like I said, I'm just here to vent. Hopefully, within these examples, I can illustrate kind of how these things tend to happen. Give an idea of that, and then maybe some ways that I think might make these things less annoying or not annoying, hopefully. So spoiler alert, most of this stuff deals with ambiguity or worse, invalid state. That's here just because I'm going to say those words like 1,000 times tonight. I think while I was practicing this, I forgot how to say ambiguity, so yeah, I might forget tonight. So spoiler alert, that's the theme of the topic: ambiguous and invalid state. The first one, okay, so over accommodator. Yeah, I'm gonna just jump in the code for this. The worst thing you should do. Can anybody not read that? Just put your hand up if you need it bigger. I saw a hand sort of up, so I'll make it. Cool. Okay, so this is not meant to be good code. In fact, this is bad code. If we look at the name of this, it is annoying code 1. So let's go through what we have here. So meant to be sort of a HTTP service, something you might use to make a network call. We end up with a response, and you might be wondering, why is the response just an int instead of a struct? Well, I wondered that too. So maybe if you were going to use it, you might make the request and get your response back and maybe do some checking. Hopefully it's some sort of a valid status code, which this function should do, which seems good. It's not the worst thing. Again, not sure why it's wrapped in why this response just wraps an int, but whatever. But then you kind of start thinking, and there's some assumptions here about like what the status code means. It's probably like a HTTP response status code type thing. So 200 is probably success. 201, I don't know, all the 200s. Right, you got to make some assumptions. And then errors, 500, right? It's canonical error, but oops. Yeah, what about all the rest of the numbers in the range of int? What do they mean, right? So it's ambiguous. It's annoying. I didn't like this. And so how might something like this change and kind of evolve over time? So we'll just go through different iterations of this. 6 months later, someone decided, oh, let's add a success Boolean here, right? Which, okay, maybe that makes things a little bit better because now you at least have this thing that says it's successful.
I'm so sorry, Dustyn.
But now you're combining that with status codes that still exist. And we have the same problems with the status codes as before, and now we're trying to combine that with Boolean. So what is successful here? Is it the Boolean? Is it a specific number or range of numbers for a status code? One, both, either, I don't know. That's annoying, right? So let's keep going. Cool, so eventually, I don't know, maybe you need to return some type that I've decided to call JSON here because hopefully folks know what JSON is. So now we have the same problems as before and this JSON thing, which again, same thing where what is a success, what is a failure? Is it all three of these? Is it none of them? Is it one of them? Multiple of them? Who knows, right? And finally, this is actually the struct that I had to deal with that made me write this talk, minus actually a couple fields. So yeah, I was literally this person here. I was Foo, trying to use it and not knowing what the heck it was. I didn't know if it was, error seems like, okay, if there's an error, that seems all right. But the rest of this, do I have to check all of it? Turns out it depended on the API that I was calling with this network request. Sometimes it returned some things and sometimes it didn't, which is just annoying, super annoying. How do we make it a little bit better? So same thing here. We stripped away some of those success and error stuff and opted for just a result. So we can capture that, success in the success case and the error in the failure case. But we still have some of the annoyances with the status code and the JSON. But at least maybe now you have like this kind of success case where like hopefully the person who ever wrote this in the past, it's success. That should be right. I guess you need both of them. How can we make it even better? So stop worrying about things you don't need to worry about is really the way to make this better. Strip out the result or the status code, and just use the JSON for this case. Really, something like the HTTP service, in my opinion, should just be handling the status codes. If you need to send it back, you can do that. Maybe be an error to handle it elsewhere, but this is really just, okay, success, here's some JSON. Go do what you want with it, or go use your type however you want. And failure, here's your error. So this is much more, much easier to understand for somebody who just comes into a code base without any knowledge about any prior art or past decisions. So cool. We get to see our lovely boom animation again. There's more of those terrible animations in here, just so you know. So yeah, why is this annoying? Tries to be flexible, but really ends up doing way too much, which eventually you end up losing sight of the original intention of what this response was supposed to be. It's the worst of both worlds, worst of all worlds, the anti-Hannah Montana, if you will. Yeah, which, there it is. I told you I'd say it a million times. At least ambiguity or invalid, potentially invalid state. So no bueno. Yeah, in the example I showed, something like this might mean that you have to have actual intimate knowledge of what's going on under the hood to be able to use it elsewhere, which is annoying. So why does this happen? So a lot of the stuff, networking, especially in this example, these are types of things that often exist in code bases for a long time. Keep adding stuff, a little here, a little there, a little this, a little that. And as you're using it, it's really easy to kind of become desensitized to these types of objects. You know how it works because you've been working with it for 5 years or whatever. But then little old me comes in and has no idea how it's supposed to work. Did you document it? Probably not. So annoying. Also, different mantras, clean code, don't repeat yourself, which is a hilarious thing to use as a mantra. It's just ironic as hell. But yeah, people, often you start using these mantras and just forcing code to do something because of a mantra that you might have or a way you think code should be written. But context matters, right? Always. The only mantra that I think is great is it depends. Fight me on that one if you want. But yeah, so a couple of reasons why. No secret here. I think I prefer APIs that are explicit, specific. Hopefully you can come in and just really understand exactly what it does without having to really dive too deep into it. And when you do need to generalize, try to generalize things that are concepts that are similar and reusable, rather than just cramming it all into one thing and hoping that general object works. So the next example, I love these stupid things. I was so happy when I realized that they existed. So too many damn flags. So this is another thing I have encountered in code bases, and it's slightly contrived, but actually not really. I've seen enough of this to be annoyed to talk about you about it. So we have here pretty simple SwiftUI view that just has a bunch of buttons, and these buttons just presents silly sheets that have titles, right? So great. Ooh, dismiss. Each flag basically represents the sheet being shown or the full screen being shown when it's true. When it's off, it's not shown, right? So if you've done anything with SwiftUI to present these, hopefully you know that. But what's going on here? Like, why is this annoying to me? So if we look at this little first button, we have this is meant to kind of just simulate the idea that, maybe you do something here, and it's supposed to present sheet one, and then you have our dreaded friend side effects. So eventually somewhere down the line, a bunch of trained calls, I don't know, this other sheet gets set. And so what happens when we press the first one? 4 seconds, maybe too long. Okay. Oh, there it is. All of a sudden it pops back up. Once we dismissed, it popped back up, which is, I don't know. Did anybody know that was going to happen, right? You have two of these flags that are set to true at the same time. And what does that mean? Like, that to me is an invalid state. So what's a way to get around that? Here we go. So this simplifies things a little bit. So we're essentially using the fact that SwiftUI also has a couple view modifiers that do the same thing as those Boolean versions, but they take an optional identifiable. And so when that optional identifiable type is non-nil, it populates the sheet and you get to see it. So we've reduced, 4 or 5 flags per type into 2, which significantly shrinks the amount of invalid state that you can have, which is great. You can still have issues here. This is definitely not perfect, but the point is that you have a lot less combinations of these flags in which that you end up in a state that's just invalid or silly. So less annoying. Yeah, let's move on. Sweet. Okay. Yeah, one more time. Yeah, so it's annoying. Once again, you're able to represent invalid state, which is silly. You really got to pay attention and be aware of kind of which of these flags are being turned on and off, and how they affect each other. If you can mitigate those types of combinations in your code, great. It's not always possible, but if you can, it becomes less annoying and hopefully less annoying bugs to deal with. So why does this happen? Booleans are easy, quote easy. It's one of the first things we learn as programmers. We learn what a Boolean is, true, false. That concept is kind of ingrained in hopefully everybody's head. So they're easy to reach for. But they can lead to issues, and maybe convention. Really easy to see that there's 15 flags before, and not want to have to spend some time to do some refactoring to make things a little nicer because your manager's yelling at you and you got to get your feature out and blah, blah, blah. So it's really easy to just go for it and kind of do what was there and stick with what's been done. So, no, go away. Spoiler alert. Sweet. Yeah, there it is. Error keys. Yeah, so hopefully no secret here. Like I warned you. Make it impossible to represent, if possible, if you're able to do so. You really don't want an invalid state. You want things to be representable in a way that makes sense for the app, makes sense for the data. So do that if you can. systems thinking. Consider how these things affect each other, right? I mean, software engineering is kind of that, hopefully, if you're doing it right. But it's really easy to want to put in a feature and just kind of forget, right? We have time crunches. It happens to everybody, but if you can, try not to do that. Okay, fire, cool. This is the last example. So nonsensical defaults. Let's go to, oh my God, I'm not left-handed. This is hard. Sweet. Okay, so let's take a look at this model. Another thing I saw in code, one of these versions that made me shake my head. So what do we have? It's a model that has a database ID, an email, a token, and a username. This particular model takes a email and username string, and then some super secret string that you need to parse to extract some information out, right? Not too bad. So let's take a look at what we're doing. We have a parser here that parses, right? Everything seems to be all right. So why is this annoying? Well, if we have things like database IDs or token that we can represent, let's just, for sake of argument and sake of a talk here, let's just say that these are things that need to exist in the system, that they should never be nil. This data string should always contain it, and if it doesn't, we got a problem, something broke somewhere. But now you have these optional types because of the way this parser works. So, you always now have to deal with these non-optional optionals, which is annoying. I'm sure pretty much everybody in here has dealt with that in the past. And do you force unwrap because it's going to work, or guard let, if let, what? So you have to deal with it, and that's kind of the point. So maybe we try to improve that a little bit. So same setup. The only difference here is we've removed the optionality from these tokens and database IDs. Okay, so we're still using the same parser, but now you're just providing some nonsensical defaults. I saw this in code and was baffled. It was a crucial piece of information that should not just be some random empty string. And it was saved in the database, which is like, how do you get rid of that once you screw it up? So, but yeah, so at least now we're doing some validation, maybe, like there's a function that checks it, but like, what is this default email? What is this default username? Like, do these really make sense to have if they're not in the right shape for this particular type? I don't know, like it works, but it's kind of annoying to deal with and to have to worry about. So what can we do? The easy way out, just crash. I mean, that works, right? Like if we're saying that these things are actually required and they should be there, then you could just crash, right? If you can't extract them from your fancy schmancy data string, right? That works. At least then you hopefully know. I've also introduced this little validation type to just basically have a validated email, but we'll get to that in a sec. So this is nice. I mean, this works, but you don't find out until you crash, and that's not fun. And then you have to worry about maybe crashing. And I don't know about you, but usually managers get upset about that for some reason. Weird, right? So yeah, what can we do? So something like this seems a little verbose, but it provides a lot of security. So same setup, takes everything here. The difference is I have a couple validated types now. So the database ID, the email, the username, and token all have what I've just called a validated blank. And they all do some parsing, some checking inside, and wrap that type. And that way you know that, hey, this is at least correct. Right? You can't have a validated database ID without having the correct shape or format or whatever you want. And if you want to access the actual string value, you can just do something like dot value, right? So you add an extra dot value to places that you need to use the string, but you get the safety of having data that is actually valid and not nonsensical. So yeah, sweet. We will look at some sick fire again. Awesome. Annoying, because non-optional optionals are annoying. Like I said, I think most people have seen this pattern, how to deal with this at some point, where you have this optional value, but it should never be nil, and you're gonna have to deal with that every place you use it, which is good. Like that's the compiler doing its job, but it's annoying to deal with if you don't have to. So when you do decide to put some random, empty string or whatever email, you end up with no guarantee that the data is valid, which is very sneaky because it's really easy to you could check every time you use it, but the compiler's not yelling at you. Are you really going to check that it's always valid? It's much nicer to know that it's valid. So yeah, why does this happen? It's just easy to not deal with it, honestly. I think that's the easy way out is, oh crap, the compiler yelled at me, question mark, random. So fortunately, yeah. And again, convention, if somebody has done this before, twice, 3 times, and it's in the code base, why not just keep doing it that way? Writing these validators and things like that can be difficult. So hopefully I could just ask the audience on this one, right? Avoid ambiguity, really easy. Yeah, and I've said this like 4 or 5 times, but if you can make it impossible to have invalid state in your code, do that. It pays dividends. So yeah, takeaways. I'm gonna just breeze through this because yeah, I've said it a bunch, but avoid ambiguity. Strive to make that invalid state impossible. When you do have to apply generalization, just be careful how you do it. You avoid having this thing that just catches all and tries to do way too much. Consider implications when you're adding things to state. They might affect each other, they might not. It's always good to think about that. In your code base, like you're the champion of it, defend it, make it nice to use for your own sanity. Yeah.